Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Carolyn, and this channel is all about true crime, mystery, and anything abnormal. I highly recommend subscribing because this channel is definitely a vibe. And I just want to say a huge thank you to all my returning subscribers. I appreciate you guys so much for showing up to each and every video. And if you're new here, welcome. I've got a wild story for you today, so let's get right into today's story. Today's story is about Tyler Hadley. Have you heard of him? Tyler Hadley was born December 16th, 1993, and he was born premature. When he was born, he only weighed 3 pounds and 10 ounces. So for the first month of his life, he had to stay in an incubator because he was so tiny. Tyler Hadley's family described him as loving, but very withdrawn, and he would definitely keep to himself most of the time. Tyler, from a very young age, suffered from anxiety, depression. He had extremely low self-esteem, and he also had bulimia. Whenever Tyler would make an attempt to try a sport or a hobby, he would try it out, but very quickly after starting any type of new activity, he would quit because he just believed everyone was better than he was and he just wasn't good enough. So anything he tried as a kid, he just quit. Tyler's parents were very well aware that their son was in need of a lot of help, and they really tried to get him help. By the age of 10, Tyler was seeing various professionals. He was being treated and medicated for everything from acne to depression. He was also on human growth hormones. He was being treated for a thyroid disease. So he had a lot of medical issues, but his parents weren't ignoring them, as we see so many times in these cases. His parents really were trying their best to get him help for all of the things that he needed help with. The age of 10 was also significant because at the age of 10, that was the first time Tyler started telling friends that he wanted to kill his parents. So we're already starting off rough. He's only 10 years old, and he already has the desire to kill, specifically his parents. So Tyler's parents were Mary Jo and Blake Hadley. Tyler had expressed to friends that he didn't believe his father, Blake, was his biological father, but there's no other information relating to this. As far as all of my research that I could find, Blake was his biological father, but there was, for some reason, Tyler he didn't believe Blake was his biological father. Whether that was he didn't want him to be his biological father, I don't know, but this was something that he had in his mind that, as far as we know, was not true. Tyler also claimed that Blake, his father, was physically abusive to Tyler. This as well, we don't know if it's true or not. It was a claim that Tyler made, but there's no one else that ever backed up this story. By the age of 11, Tyler was committing petty crimes, from vandalism to theft, as well as setting small fires. And you know as well as I do, when kids are starting fires, that is never a good sign. Tyler liked to start very small fires and then watch as the fire would overtake a wooded area. And he liked to sit and watch it burn. And when kids are excited by fire, generally things are not going to go in a good direction. And in this story, they definitely don't. Tyler then began self-medicating. By the age of 12, he was getting drunk and smoking weed. And by the time he was 15, he was now doing pills. He was taking Xanax, Percocet, oxycodone, and by the age of 16, he was taking DMT, which is a very strong hallucinogenic. What no one knew was that Tyler was starting to believe the solution to all of his problems was to kill his parents. Once he had started thinking about killing his parents, the thoughts became more and more frequent. And it got to the point where he was thinking about killing his parents every single day. He would have these intrusive thoughts that the solution to everything was that he needed to kill his parents. And just to be clear, these were thoughts he was having. He was not hearing voices. These were just his own thoughts. Tyler started almost playing this movie in his mind of how he would kill his parents. And the idea to him was he would kill his parents. He would then take one of the cars, put it in the garage, turn it on, and unalive himself by carbon monoxide poisoning. And this was a movie that played through his mind daily. So we have a young kid with extremely dark thoughts, taking drugs, and though his parents are trying to get him help, nothing seems to be working. Tyler, at the age of 17, when this whole event takes place, had been detained by the police for arson, vandalism, aggravated battery, and there was also a $15,000 civil suit against him because at one point he had stole his father's car, and while he was driving it, he hit a child and injured them. So they had a civil suit against him for the injury that the child had suffered. And Tyler's parents were still trying to get help for him. They had enrolled him in an outpatient program for drugs, but it wasn't working because Tyler had no desire to stop taking drugs. So his parents are trying to get him sober, but he doesn't want to be sober, so it's not working. Tyler's parents, knowing that Tyler was going to turn 18 soon, were desperate to do something because they know once he turns 18, he's an adult, and their ability to get him help is going to become much more limited than if he is under 18. Tyler's parents had found an inpatient program that they were going to send Tyler to. And his parents told him that he was going to this inpatient program for therapy, whether he wanted to go or not. This is believed by many to be the motive that Tyler had that set off the series of events that I'm about to tell you about. It's not known 100% if this was his motive because he never stated this as his motive, but generally the people in his life believe this is what was sort of the breaking point. Tyler allegedly, a few weeks before he does what he is about to do, he came up with a very detailed plan. Tyler decided to tell his friend what his plan was, and his plan was to murder both his mother and his father. His friend, hearing this, didn't believe Tyler because Tyler had spoken many times about wanting to kill his parents, so his friends never really took him serious. Plus, he's also a teenager, so he's telling these things to other teenagers and not always gonna make the best decisions as a teenager. Tyler had told his friend that he was going to have a huge house party after committing parricide. And parricide refers to the killing, usually of a mother or father, or in this case, both. It can also refer to other close relatives. But basically, his plan was to murder his parents and then throw a huge house party. Sounds like psychotic teenage logic. And when he told his friend that this was his plan, he said that this was his plan because it had never been done before. So he had researched whether someone had ever killed their parents and then thrown a huge house party afterwards. So this was very, very premeditated. All of this conversation with his friends that I'm telling you about happened a few weeks before the actual murders take place. On July 16th, 2011, Tyler wrote on his Facebook page wall, "Party at my crib tonight, ... maybe." Around 5 p.m. that day, Tyler took a few ecstasy pills and he was now ready to attack. Tyler's mother was sitting in front of the computer, and unbeknownst to her, Tyler was standing behind her for almost 5 minutes with a hammer in his hand, deciding if he was going to actually go through with his plan. And after standing there for about 5 minutes thinking about it, Tyler decided to strike, and he hit his mother in the head with a hammer. Mary Jo screamed and turned around to look at Tyler and just said, "Why?" And Tyler just kept hitting her with the hammer. Now, Tyler's father, Blake, was home in another room, and when he heard Mary Jo scream, he obviously came running, wondering what was going on. And Tyler claims that he and his father made eye contact for a few seconds, and then Tyler attacked his father with the hammer, killing him and Mary Jo. Tyler, at just 17 years old, had just beaten both of his parents to death with a hammer. Tyler then dragged both of his parents' bodies upstairs into a bedroom, and he piled a whole bunch of furniture on top of them. I'm going to insert a picture of the room, and just to let you know, in the picture you can't see the bodies. You can just see the pile of furniture. I will be inserting different pictures in this video, but there'll be nothing graphic. I don't ever put graphic pictures in the video. So there'll be other pictures throughout the house in this video, but don't worry, none of it will be graphic. You won't see anything too wild, except this party that now is going to go on. Tyler then spent the next 3 hours trying his best to clean up. He mopped the floor, he was using Lysol wipes, and he later complained to friends that it took him almost 3 hours to clean up the mess he would made. And it's like, oh, poor baby. It took you 3 hours to clean up your murder scene? And I mean, this kid did not do a very good job, as we'll come to find out later. But his next plan was, okay, I've just murdered in cold blood for no reason my parents. Let's party. That was his next thought. What? Blake, his father, he was an engineer who had worked for the last 30 years at a nuclear power plant. And Mary Jo was his mother, and she was a beloved elementary school teacher. One of Mary Jo's former students would go on to say, no matter who you were, or even if she liked you, she would never give up on you. And I found this an interesting quote because it seems like that's what Mary Jo did with Tyler. She did everything she could to try to get him the help that he needed. And how he repaid her, he beat her to death. Like, what a sick little thing. And right up until the day they were murdered, Tyler's parents were still trying to get him help. He wasn't a kid who had absent parents or parents who were ignoring his problems. He had parents that were very invested in helping him and getting him the help that he needed. But honestly, I don't think there was help for this thing. I think he was evil, in my opinion. And that night at 8:15 p.m., Tyler posted again on his Facebook wall saying, "Party at my house tonight." One of his friends commented to him, "What if your parents come home?" And Tyler replied, "Don't worry about that, trust me." Because Tyler had been talking about having this party, and all of his friends could not figure out how he was having a party at his house, because he had been in a lot of trouble lately. He had had his cell phone taken away from him. His parents were looking to put him in an inpatient therapy program. Like, to his friends, they were very confused. Like, how are your parents letting this happen? So eventually he came up with the lie and said that his parents had gone to Orlando. By midnight, more than 100 kids had shown up at Tyler's house, and none of them knew that Tyler's parents were dead in an upstairs bedroom. High schoolers were playing beer pong. They were putting out cigarettes on the walls. They were breaking furniture. They were even emptying food from the cupboard. So they would like take a box of cereal out of the cupboard, open it up and throw it all over the floor. Like, these kids absolutely trashed this whole house. It was really, really out of control. Later that night, Tyler took his best friend, Michael Mendel, to the side and confessed that he had killed his parents. Now, at first, Michael did not believe Tyler. He just said, "Shut up, what are you talking about?" Tyler said to Michael, "Go look in the driveway," because in the driveway were both of the parents' cars. So how had they gone to Orlando? Michael still believed that this was some kind of prank. He couldn't believe that his best friend had actually murdered his parents. Then Tyler led Michael to the bedroom where his parents were. And when Michael opened the door, he could see the father's leg. And he knew this wasn't a prank. Tyler really had murdered his parents. In shock, Michael didn't leave the party right away. He actually took a selfie with Tyler because he believed that this was the last time he was ever going to see his best friend. Michael then left the party and made an anonymous call to Crime Stoppers to report the murders. Michael left the anonymous tip at 4:24 a.m. on July 17th, 2011, and what he said was Tyler Hadley had murdered both of his parents with a hammer. When police got this tip, they rushed to the house, and when they showed up at the house, the party was still raging. The house was still full of kids partying, and this was a crime scene if the tip was true. And at first, Tyler tried to refuse to let the police in, but the police were having none of it. Police made an emergency entrance into the house despite Tyler's protests. And when the police entered the home, they could clearly see that the house had been trashed. There were beer bottles all over the place. There were cigarette butts all over the floor. The furniture had been broken. There was food thrown all over the place. But one thing that the police noticed that apparently none of the other teenagers in this house had noticed was there was dried blood all over the place. When police forced open the bedroom door, there was a coffee table and chairs piled on top of the bed, and the police moved the items, and underneath they discovered the deceased body of Blake and Mary Jo Hadley. And I just don't really know. And teenage minds are so confusing, especially teenage killers, because they really don't think anything through. Like in this case, you murder your parents, you put them in a bedroom, hide them under furniture, throw a huge house party. Like, how could you draw more attention to yourself? Like, teenage minds of killers, they're wild because the thought process, just A, B, C, and D never connect. It's just crazy. But apparently Tyler's plan had been that after the party was over, he was going to unalive himself. Apparently he had a stash of drugs that he was hiding in his bedroom. So this possibly could have been what his plan was, but he's not the most honest person, so it's kind of hard to know when he tells things if he is or is not telling the truth. Because Tyler was a minor in Florida, he couldn't be given the death penalty. So in 2014, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And Tyler had no remorse for any of this. Now, his case did get challenged as to whether it was fair if he was given life in prison without the possibility of parole, being a minor. So while he was kind of going through this process legally, trying to see if he could get a sentence with parole, then he had all kinds of remorse, and he was so sorry, and he was so devastated, and he regretted it every day. But that was total and utter bullshit. Total bullshit. Because while he was in jail awaiting sentencing, he was signing autographs for the other inmates. Because apparently when he was in jail, all the other inmates just thought he was this really cool guy because he had committed this murder and thrown this big party, and somehow that made him some kind of rock star in jail. Like, I don't know. And how he would sign these autographs was he would take articles that had been written about him, and on it he would write, "It's hammer time," and then he would sign it Hammer Boy. And Hammer Boy was a nickname he gave himself. And all of this was because he had killed his parents with a hammer. So this kid had absolutely zero remorse for anything that he did. He was in jail awaiting sentencing, and he was having a great time. He was excited about what he had done. He loved talking to the other inmates about what he had done. Like, sometimes in these stories, you think, okay, someone had a hard life and life kind of turned them into this evil person. But this kid, I think he was just born evil, in my opinion, because he had these two parents that loved him and that were trying to help him. And so many kids need so much help, and they end up with parents who either just don't recognize that they need help or they don't care to get them help. But Tyler really had these two parents who really wanted to help him, and he killed them in the most brutal way, and then he threw a fucking party. And Tyler also has an older brother. I didn't mention him throughout the story because I'm sure he just doesn't want any piece of any part of this. So I just kind of didn't even mention him. But he does have a brother who hopefully, this brother, after losing both of his parents to his psychotic brother, hopefully he's doing okay and hopefully he can find some sort of peace. But Tyler sure would make it hard. So I would really love to know what you guys think about the idea of, are people born evil? Because this is now my 53rd video, I think, that I've done. And in so many of the videos, you can almost see how someone ends up a killer. You look at their childhood and it's so devastating and they go through so much abuse. It doesn't ever excuse when they end up becoming killers, but it at least kind of makes a little bit of sense. Like, you can see how they got there. Doesn't excuse it. They still need to spend their lives in prison and pay for what they did. But then there's cases like this where he was very troubled from birth. I mean, he had issues his whole life, but he had a loving family. He had people trying to help him. And in this case, I really believe he was just born evil. So let me know what you think. Do you think that people can just be born evil, or do you think they become evil? What is your opinion on that? Because I go back and forth about it all the time in what I think. And in this case, my vote is he is just evil. And hopefully he's not celebrated in prison. Like, I don't know. So that's the end of today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Leave in the comment section below if there's any suggestions that you have, and I will see you in the next one.